And it's a 3, 2, 1. Welcome from me. So let's get me in the picture, shall we? So let's change the view, get me in here. And good morning and welcome from Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, UK, the world, and all those good things. So I'm Paul Archer. Hope everybody is good, and we're raring to go on our Monday morning live stream. So I reckon we should just go on air, shall we, and just get cracking. For those of you watching on YouTube, hi. For those of you listening to the podcast, well, it's a belated hi because you're probably listening to this after the event. If you're on YouTube, then you're live, and live always has kind of a good ring to it, doesn't it? Got a few topics for you today, because we've had a few things happening in the financial services mortgage sector in the last week. And I want to give you a bit of an update on some FCA stuff as well, because it's really important that you know about these things. So what's been going on there? I picked up this article yesterday whilst I was reading my financial press, you see, because I read the financial press. No, actually, I read a lot of stuff over the weekend because I like to keep up to date with what's going on. And one little social media thing that ticks me, a bit of a hint there for you, is TikTok, which has been doing the rising in the last few years. And TikTok is like the sub 1 minute video thing. You see them on LinkedIn. It doesn't look right on LinkedIn because it's great fun and a bit bouncy, and people have a bit of a laugh with TikTok. But it's all about short videos, which apparently YouTube are going to emulate this year, called YouTube Shorts, they're calling them. But anyway, TikTok's got this hashtag called, where is it? Hashtag MoneyTok, MoneyTok. And it's followed by millions of people. So if you're in the mortgage world, financial services world, don't laugh at this. Don't underestimate the power of TikTok, because they reckon that 41% of 18 to 24-year-olds, young generation, are watching hashtag MoneyTok for their financial advice and guidance. And there's an awful lot of people doing some great videos on this platform. And these young people, they're listening to them, they're gaining ideas, and most of them actually are pretty darn good as well. There's a few not so good ones, and they're the ones hitting the press, of course, as they would. But I just thought, if you laugh at these things, at your peril really is the answer to that one. What else has been happening? I want to show you a photograph. For those of you on podcast, you can't see the photograph unless you're like really clever. For those of you on LinkedIn, you can do. Now, this photograph is from our leader of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey. So let's just flick up the photograph for you, so you can see Mr. Bailey. There's a picture of Mr. Bailey. So let's put me in the picture so that I can sort of chat to you about this one as well. There you go. I'm up here as well. Let's go over here so you can see him. And that's Andrew Bailey, ex-FCA, interesting enough, who was in the press last week talking about financial prudence, because that's what the Bank of England does. It's all about helping people and businesses to be prudent. Now, poor old Andrew Bailey was criticised for using the words "don't ask for a big pay rise." And I want to just sort of share with you why actually he was correct, although it all didn't come across very well at all. I think he needs an Eli from The Good Wife to help him out a little bit, really. He was actually quite correct. Unfortunately, the press picked it up. I mean, I grabbed these snapshots of the newspaper. Here's the FT, it's a bit more sort of sensible. Bailey accused of pay rise hypocrisy, they said. Call for restraint on increases. Unions react with anger. Bank of England chief at odds of number 10. So he's not doing very well, is he? But then I went to the Star, the Daily Star. Look at this one, the Plank of England. And just to hold it, you really couldn't make it up, could you? There's absolutely nothing better than being lectured about fiscal prudence by a prat with a 575 a year job. Now, of course, Andrew's on £575,000. Most people aren't, are they? Let's be honest about it. But the point is that he was quite correct. And I'll explain to you why. Let's just change my view. Let's bring me back to where we were before, shall we? Let's bring me back over here, back into the studio. The point about Andrew Bailey, though, is he was talking a lot of sense, because inflation, of course, is a big issue right now. We've seen it in the press. It's rising high. They're predicting that once the gas and energy bills caps comes in sort of April, May time, and starts to affect the supply chain of all sorts of businesses, because everybody has to use energy in their businesses. Inflation, measured by CPI, is going to get plus 7%, which is, blooming scary stuff. For not been for years, and that's going to affect mortgage interest rates, which of course are starting to trick upwards. We know these things. Now, of course, inflation is probably in most people's lifetime on the call here to do with demand, because there's demand supply in any economy. And demand is like really high. That's what causes inflation. Demand's up. The economy's overheating. There's so much demand for products, so much money around, swishing about, that it causes inflation. And that's typically where inflation comes from. So, of course, monetarism can bring that down. But this time's very different. And I wish people would realize that. This time it's very different. This time it's about supply. Demand is high. Of course it is, but not that high. Around the world, I'm talking about here as well. But supply is throttling backwards. Still post-COVID, supply is causing all sorts of problems. So if goods can't be supplied quickly, efficiently, prices go up. And that's what's happened to gas. The inherent cost of gas hasn't actually gone up. It's just that it's been supply has been throttled. And if you throttle supply, prices go up. And the threat of Ukraine is only going to cause more problems. And that's what's causing it. Anyway, what happens though when there's inflation? This is where Andrew was coming into it. What happens with inflation is that businesses see their costs go up, so they increase their costs. It's pretty much how it works, really. So if they have to pay more for energy and gas, whatever, businesses think, okay, guys, our costs are up. How are we going to deal with this? Well, let's put our prices up. So of course, prices start going up, which causes inflation. Now, then, what happens is people who work for those companies or work for any company think, hold on, our cost of living's coming down here. We can't afford, we need more money to pay for the gas bill, for everything. So, okay, Mr. Employer, can we have a pay rise, please? Give us a pay rise. We haven't had one for a while. I used to call these things years ago cost of living pay rises. We used to get those things back in the 70s and 80s. Not anymore, not for years. And that's where Andrew Bailey's come in, because he's saying to people, look, get a pay rise, but don't ask for huge amounts, because that will just cause more inflation. And he's darn right. We used to call that stagflation, which is an awful phrase, isn't it? But blame that on economists. What happens here is you have a wage price spiral, because prices go up because of inflation. So everybody wants a pay rise. So people's pay goes up, which causes businesses' costs to go up, which means that they put their prices back up again. And it's kind of like a spiral. One keeps on increasing the other. And that's known as stagflation. Very, very dangerous. Had that in the 70s. And in the 1970s, we had big trade union power as well, which allowed people to get pay rises easily. We don't have that anymore. So it's slightly different or more difficult to get a pay rise, because if you collectively bargain, you get better deals, don't you? So my thinking really is, Andrew Bailey was correct. Don't think about, but people don't think that way. A bloke earning almost 600 grand a year isn't going to be taken seriously on that, unfortunately. But I suppose we should have restraint. But I do think, though, that businesses should have more restraint. Businesses, of course, are quite happy to put their prices up because they think people will pay for it. Maybe they will, because the business wants to maintain its margin. They want to maintain its margins. Now, businesses to maintain margins can actually reduce their own costs by cutting back a bit, by economizing, whatever that looks like. And businesses can temporarily take a bit of a cut in their margin. Maybe shareholders won't get so many dividends or something. Or maybe the top CEOs can take a little bit of a pay cut, possibly. That would please the masses, wouldn't it? But seriously, though, some businesses will have some constraints or restrain themselves from increasing prices. Some won't. Some will just happily put their prices up because they think the poor old consumer is going to pay it. But consumers aren't stupid. Whatever you look at it, we're not daft. If we see a company just whacking their prices up because they can, and they arrogantly think we'll pay for them, then we'll go somewhere else where it's cheaper. You'll find competition will come in, will drive the prices down in order to get a bigger market share. Because inflation will come back down again fairly quickly, we think, when this supply throttle sort of gets released a bit, really. And those businesses that had a bit of restraint will actually win more market share. So there's nothing, that's, I think, where we should be going with this, not telling the poor old consumer, don't ask for a pay rise. But anyway, you can't make this stuff up, can you? And that poor bloke's all over the press all weekend. I'm sure he'll get some kind of spin doctoring or something to help him out along the way, because he does need it. Good article, that one. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to something a little bit more serious, shall we? Andrew Bailey, of course, used to work for the FCA. I think he was a head honcho there of the Financial Conduct Authority. So I want to talk about the FCA a little bit more now for you to enjoy that topic. Okay, let's take a look at the FCA now and take a look at the principles of business, FCA's principles for business. And to understand the FCA and how they roll, they've got a lot of rules and guidance, of course they have, and they give rules and guidance for people to follow. But they're very keen to let people adhere to some of the rules. They're very keen to give guidance so that firms can adhere to the rules, but in kind of their own way. And they have what's called the principles of business. So let's just pop along there and take a look at a view of some of the principles that we got. That's our Mr. Bailey's photograph. Ignore that one, won't you? FCA Principles for Business is what I want to talk about here. Now, the whole point about the principles of business, let's put me in the picture so you can see it as well, is they've had these principles for donkey's years because they allow people to, or businesses I should say, to adhere to the spirit of the law or spirit of the rules. They want people to take that on board rather than pure rules. So let's take a look at the principles for you, because you might get questioned in the exam on these ones for you. But you got this all in the book, so you can refer to this when you want to. The first one is integrity. In other words, firms must conduct their business with integrity. Now, I think any firm should do that anyway, regardless of whether you're authorized or not, but you should be conducting yourself with good integrity as well. Number two, over here, isn't it? Skill, care, and diligence. So when you're dealing with customers, with the FCA, you must act with good skill, good care, and good diligence. In fact, if you're into the principles, you'll see that principle quite regularly cropping up time and time again. Then we've got management and control. So managers should control the business systems and controls. Control, proper management over the business is a key principle. Financial prudence. In other words, businesses should manage themselves with prudence, prudential, so having capital, having assets, manage their business effectively, because that, of course, can give customers good advice and good outcomes. Over here, you must conduct yourself with proper market conduct, bearing in mind the industry that we're in as well. These are generic principles, really, which businesses should be following along the way. Customer interests. So everything you do must be in the customer's best interests. And that's a key one, which we'll come on to later as well. Communications with clients should be clear, fair, not misleading, all those good things. So proper communications with clients at all times as well. Over here, conflicts of interest should be prevented from causing issues and problems if there's conflicts of interest between you and any other firm or client that you're dealing with. That's a key one, isn't it? Down the bottom, you must have a relationship of trust with customers, with clients. Makes sense. All financial advisors, mortgage brokers, mortgage advisors would really want to build trust with their clients as well. Clients' assets, make sure they're looked after, protected, separate bank accounts, that sort of thing. And finally, relations with regulators are open and cooperative, as you would think that, wouldn't you, from a principle. So these are the principles for businesses to follow if they're authorized by the FCA and PRA as well, who have similar principles. Now, obviously, there's many other rules and things like that. There's the senior management and certification regime, which has its own conduct rules to follow as well. And you have various rules for those with significant harm functions, a bit like the old approved persons there as well. They have conduct rules to follow. But we'll talk about SM and CR in a bit more detail later. But the next clip is talking about customers, fair treatment outcomes. Here, of course, you must act with customer interests at the heart of everything you do. And that's the right thing to do if you're a customer-led business. So I'll talk about that in the next clip. Okay, let's move on then to take a look at the FCA's 6 fair treatment outcomes. Now, you might have come across this phrase before, fair treatment, because it's a key one really when it comes to it. We talk here about the FCA focusing themselves on businesses and asking all authorized businesses to be very, very clear as to their concern with customers. They want them to act on the spirit of the rules, not the letter of the rules. And they introduced this concept, we used to call it TCF, or treating customers fairly. They introduced it way back in 2006, 2007. So it's been around for a long time now. But the FCA took over this when they started to come in, when they replaced the FCA, or FSA, I should say. And they've really taken this to the next level. It's a really clever system, because what it does, it makes businesses think about everything they do all about customers. And compliance people call it fair customer outcomes and all that kind of stuff. And that's great, I get all that. But it's all about looking after your customers. Now, the first thing they did, which I thought was quite clever, is when you treat your customers fairly, or fair treatment, call it what you like, it has to be at the heart of everything you do. And it's there that you have what's called the product cycle. So everything you do in the product cycle has to have fair treatment of customers glued all over it. You think about a typical product cycle, you've got 5 sort of parts to it, really, haven't you? 5 parts. When a product is created, it's designed by product designers. Then the product is marketed by marketing teams. Then the product is advised by financial advisors. The financial advisors close the sale, and then there's lots of admin afterwards by post-advice teams. So any new product that comes in is going to go through that product cycle. Design of the product, makes sense, marketing of the product, advising the product, selling the product if you like, and then the post-admin customer service arrangements. So everything in that customer cycle has to be geared around fair treatment. And I think that's really clever, isn't it? But then they've got these 6 outcomes. Let's talk about the 6 outcomes for you. So I've got a nice little graphic up here for you. Here's the 6 outcomes, which are very sensible, and I actually particularly like them. I think they're very clever. So let's zoom in on the first one. So the first one is that customers can be confident that the fair treatment of customers is central to the firm. So however you do that, you've got to make sure your customers really know that their fair treatment is the most important part to everything that firm does. It's more than just putting a poster up in the window or something on the website. It has to be in your culture. You have to be in your DNA, in your blood, as they say. You know, cut the arm open, it's like a stick of rock. Customer best interests at heart here. And that's the right thing to do anyway at the end of the day, isn't it? Number 2, products and services need to meet identified consumer groups. So whatever your product is, it needs to think about the customer that you're gearing that product to. So I don't know, take for example, you're an IFA firm and you've got a new portfolio management service for high net worth clients in the dental industry. Then all of the details that you do, all the product, all the marketing and promotions must be geared to that kind of person. But if you're selling a very low cost savings product, for example, that's geared towards the average person, then again, your marketing needs to be geared towards that individual. You know, you need to advertise it with words that people can appreciate and understand. Maybe not rely exclusively on the internet if a lot of your people that you're targeting this with don't have access to the internet. You know, so you've got to be a little careful with that one. I quite like that one. Clear information provided before, during, and after point of sale. Okay, that's fine. This is where we cut down a lot of trees, don't we? We give a lot of brochures and disclosure and stuff like that. And okay, I understand that marketing get all over this thing, but clear information is about helping customers to understand the product before, during, and after the point of sale. That's sensible stuff, isn't it? This is the best one. Advice is suitable and takes into account customers' circumstances. So this is all about the mortgage advisor, the financial advisor, giving the right advice, doing proper fact finding, making it suitable, suitability letters, and everything has to be geared around that. There's been plenty of rules on that anyway. MCOBs, COBs, all make sure that we do that and do that really well. Over here, products do what they're supposed to do. They perform. A bit obvious, really. You buy a car, you hope it's going to work. You take it back, don't you? Financial services is slightly different. If it's a mortgage service you provide, or a mortgage product you're providing, or a financial services product, or an insurance product, it's got to do what you say it's going to do. And that's where mis-sellings come on. The payment protection debacle was because the payment protection product didn't do what it was supposed to do, which is why people complained and got a lot of money back in compensation. So think about your product. It does as well. Top tip for you. Consumers do not face unreasonable post-sale barriers, switching, claims, and complaints. I mean, I switched my bank account last month from Tesco's because they shut them down to where do we go? Nationwide. Good firm, that. And it was a really good system. You know, I switched it without any problems whatsoever. Likewise, if I want to change my product provider or switch or make a claim or complain, I need to be able to do that. Complaining is dead easy now. You just need to sniff the word complaint on Twitter and the company be right on you, are they, to help you make that complaint? So these are fair treatment outcomes. These are the 6 treating customer fairly, fair treatment outcomes, principles really, that need to be adhered to. And if you do that, actually, you will be on the way to be giving a really good service to customers, a really good firm. You must demonstrate you do this. You need to prove to the FCA that you're doing this. If they ever want to know, they can come and ask you. You have to have evidence and proof that these 6 outcomes are being adhered to, not just an audit trail of paperwork. You genuinely have to be doing it properly. And that's fair treatment to customers. When you think about it now, it's about 16, 17 years old now, this. So we really ought to be getting quite good at this by now. I hope that's been useful. Bye. Okay, let's move away from there, shall we? Back over here so that we can have a chat and a bit of a goodbye for you as well. So those FCA sessions are merely for our bootcamp, just to update things as well, because we're always updating our materials and making them more modern and refreshing, that sort of thing as well. What's going on now? Well, the mortgage market's beginning to bubble. There's news from, I think, the Halifax reported this morning that house prices are not as frothy as they once were. So maybe things are dipping a little bit on house prices. But then again, the mortgage market isn't totally, doesn't require house prices to be rocketing for us to do very well, do we? So lots of things happening there. Great stuff going on here as well. Our next big push really is for our newest product, the Professional Development Foundation, PDF. Do you like that title, do you? Now, the Professional Development Foundation is our way of helping newly qualified mortgage advisors to become really good at their job. I mean, really good. Because obviously a newly recruited or newly authorized financial advisor, mortgage advisor will have their CMAPs and things, but they're then going to have to get themselves competent with a firm. They're going to have to join a firm as an employee or self-employed, and they're going to have to get that competence approved by the firm they go to. They call that CAS, don't they? Competent advisor status. Now, a lot of people are having trouble with this because they're joining firms that haven't got the time, the effort to bring their CAS forward quickly. And I get emails weekly from people who've just passed their CMAP. They've got themselves in a position and they've been CASed. How on earth, I don't know. And they're struggling. They're really struggling with the business. It's quite harrowing to hear them, actually. They're really having a hard time. So we've got this product called the PDF, Professional Development Foundation. Starts on March 1st, I think. And for about 12 weeks, we take you through some live streams on some skill development for you on how to be a mortgage advisor. So sales, advisor skills, process skills, marketing skills, how to set yourself up really and do really well. And you get coaching from me in between. You get short bursts of 20-minute coaching on a weekly basis. So I can help you individually to see how you're getting on over a 3-month period. You're going to get well looked after, give you a real good head start to your career. So that's coming up on the 1st of March. Just get onto our database and I'll email you details of that one. You get a special discount for you as well. Enough about promotion, blatant promotion going on. I'm going to stop doing that now because it's 25 past, so we need to say goodbye. Hope you've had a lovely time this morning. Hope I've given you some value, and have a great week. Enjoy the week, and we'll see you next week.